Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Philip Bliss. I'm a previous chairman of the Council of Christians and Jews. And in early 2000, we became aware of an amazing story and an amazing man. In 1938, William Cooper, who was the leader of the Aboriginal League in Victoria, became aware of what was happening at Kristallnacht in Germany. William Cooper saw a wrong and marched from his home in Footscray to the consulate, the German consulate in the city of Melbourne, to present a petition to complain about the treatment of Jews in Germany. The march, which was about 25 kilometres, culminated actually in the door of the consulate being closed in William Cooper's face. But the story did get a little publicity in Melbourne, in the newspapers, but then the story disappeared for many decades. In the early 2000s, the Council of Christians and Jews became aware of this story, and we organised a wonderful commemoration where his grandson, Uncle Boydie, spoke about living with his grandfather in his home in Footscray so many years earlier. As we became aware more and more of the circumstances, a number of events were organised not only to publicise the William Cooper story, but also to enhance the relationship between the Aboriginal community, the Jewish community, and the Council of Christians and Jews. Many events occurred, including a march on the 80th anniversary from all areas of Melbourne to the banks of the Yarra River, where Hanukkah candles were lit from the welcoming ceremony that the local Aboriginal community had provided. However, the highest point of all of this story is that a couple of years ago, myself and my wife and a number of people from Australia were privileged to be in Berlin to witness Uncle Boydie presenting a copy of the petition to the ambassador for Jewish affairs in Germany. This was held at the Australian Embassy, and to a packed audience, the heightened emotional fever was palpable. Many of Uncle Boydie's family were with us in Germany, and the reception from the German ambassador was warm and very, very accepting.
On the 6th of December 1938, at the age of 77, he walked to the German consulate to deliver the letter. Exactly 80 years later, the Jewish community has gathered at his house to remember his act of humanity.
We're going to retrace the footsteps of Uncle William Cooper. We are so honoured that you're here.
The march is being led by Cooper's grandson, Uncle Boydie. What do you think the march today represents?
I went to Israel.
Yeah.
All the Jews knew the story, and they didn't know the story here in Melbourne. So we decided to do something about that.
No wonder he's accorded hero status in Israel. In 1938, Cooper led a small delegation. Today, outside the former German consulate, it's a very different story. Look at the crowd that's come today to commemorate, to celebrate, to reinforce the idea that we have to take on the world's humanitarian problems. Here was a man in Footscray who lifted his gaze from Footscray to the world and saw what was happening in Germany and decided to do something about it. William Cooper died in 1941, but his unrelenting pursuit of equality inspired a whole new generation of activists.
Let me start by telling you where 11 of my Year 9 students were just about a month ago. They were spending 4 days on a cultural exchange with the Yorta Yorta community, and the highlight of the event was the evening they spent in the company of and learning from Uncle Boydie and his daughter Leonie. It was a session which was scheduled to last for 45 minutes. It went on for more than 2 hours. And the students, who were overwhelmed by the entire experience of their time with the community, identified the evening they spent learning from Uncle Boydie as the absolute highlight. So these girls, they were all girls, reflected on their meeting with Uncle Boydie, and they said, in particular, they learnt 3 things. And the first is that they learnt from your life story, which you told so eloquently, and I'm told they were hanging on your every word for more than an hour. And they learnt of the discrimination that applied to Aboriginal people in Uncle Boydie's own lifetime. The idea that there were limits on how Aboriginal people could move, not to mention many other hardships and aspects of discrimination that Indigenous people suffered, which was a revelation, as indeed is often a revelation to young people today, that in our own country, in the lifetime of people still alive today, there was such a system which is so abhorrent and unimaginably abhorrent. And the second thing they learnt was the story of William Cooper. For William Cooper to be one of the few people in the world who realized at that early stage that what was happening to the Jews of Germany was wrong and demanded his attention and demanded his activism. That is truly remarkable. And that proves that William Cooper was motivated not just by a desire to improve the lot of Indigenous people, important and essential and so right that was, but to fight for justice for every people. And that is his legacy. And as I said, the other thing that our students learned from their time with Uncle Boydie was a renewed commitment to reconciliation.
I am pleased to have the honor to recognize formally, on behalf of the government of the Federal Republic of Germany, both the protest note and your grandfather's commitment. As Federal Foreign Office Special Representative for Relations with Jewish Organizations, I am also pleased to have this opportunity to express, on behalf of the federal government and the people of Germany, my profound respect and sincere gratitude to you, your grandfather, and the Australian Aborigines League. We thank you for standing up for the Jews in Germany during the Nazi regime and for keeping alive the memory of this courageous act of solidarity against the Nazis.
I've had 2 very special moments in my community life over the last 40 years. One was to spend almost 2 hours with Yitzhak Rabin in Jerusalem in 1995, explaining the need for peace. And the other very special occasion was in Berlin with Uncle Boydie, when he presented a copy of the letter that William Cooper had tried to deliver to the German consulate. It was a very special evening at the Australian Embassy, and the emotion and the excitement and the sheer joy on Uncle Boydie's face and all his family's was to be treasured, and we do. It's a memory that I'll never forget, nor my wife, Andrea, who was with me. It was a very, very special moment. But the story of William Cooper lives on, and there's a justice centre named after William Cooper. There are sports facilities highlighting the involvement of the Aboriginal League and the William Cooper story, but it still remains an amazing exception to those who stayed silent after Kristallnacht. And it took an Aboriginal leader to actually publicise the treatment of the Jews in Germany. I think maybe because of that story and many other situations that were going on, there's been a very close relationship between the Jewish community and the Aboriginal community, especially in the area of providing legal advice for land rights. William Cooper died fairly young. He wasn't a well person, but even to the end remained a strong advocate for human rights, and for that we thank him very much.